water shortage crisis is one of the most significant social phenomena that exists in the world today. The way I'm going to represent this to the audience is through a metaphor. The glass that's full of water represents how much water we need to have a sustainable water supply for the world population. The one with 25% full shows how much we have today and why we have a shortage crisis that exists in the world today. And this final cup shows what is predicted by experts in 25 years, and how we will have less than 1% of what we need in that future if we do not take any action right now to stop the water shortage crisis. Okay. The water shortage crisis is actually not a water shortage crisis, but it's a water management crisis. The nature of water management and the status quo is inadequate at best. The fundamental problems of water shortage crisis are deeply rooted in poverty and inequality. The effects of water shortage, even though it is considered a global crisis, are seen to be most prevalent in developing nations. Developing nations suffer the most of the crippling factors of rampant poverty and the lack of an established infrastructure in order to effectively distribute water to the people of their nations. The foundation behind these issues can be attributed to a lack of accountability behind private corporation interests. Private corporations utilize water, a resource that is essential to human existence, as a commodity. As a result of this commoditization of water by multinational corporations, many of those who suffer from poverty do not get the water that they need, and many die as a result. A major component of the shortage of water exists in the status quo is the major disparity between water withdrawal and actual water usage. In the status quo, a very small portion of the water that is actually pumped out of the earth is actually utilized for human usage. It is estimated that currently only 17% of total readily accessible and renewable water supply is actually utilized towards global consumption. This represents the lack of effective usage of water, which plays a major role in the perceived shortage of water. This presents the notion that increased accountability would be able to effectively solve some of the major components that cause the water shortage crisis. And this becomes almost irrefutable at the point at which water itself is a renewable and exhaustible resource. Scientists are baffled at the fact that we can actually deplete a source that is renewable and cannot be depleted. How we have a shortage of a resource that we actually cannot even have a shortage of, because it will always exist. So that's, in global society, it's like evident the fact that we are managing the water correctly, not the fact that there is actually a shortage of water. And above all, the single identifying foundation of the water shortage crisis is the lack of proper management. As international organizations such as the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund, or IMF, push for the increased privatization of water distribution in efforts to increase efficiency, these organizations fail to realize that by doing so, they render water unaffordable to the people who can't afford it in these impoverished developing nations. These corporations take away the water supplies from those who suffer most from the effects of the scarcity. By analyzing the past records of regulation by the private corporations and the current nature of the water shortage crisis, it becomes empirically proven that private corporations are unfit to serve as regulators of its distribution. Water is considered to be many as a basic human right, as without its survival is impossible. Thus, it should be considered a violation of human rights that these private corporations don't provide the water that is needed by these people, because they allow them to die of a lack of water for their own survival by trying to simply gain a profit off the simple commodity that is essential to human survival. Many people have predicted a sharp rise in what occurs as these water shortages occur in developing nations, is that they fight each other over the neighboring water supplies, and this is called water wars. Many of these water wars occur in the Middle East, in countries such as Israel, Palestinians, Jordan, and Syria, and these impacts represent what is to occur if the accountability of the usage of water is not improved, and further present why addressing this issue is of foremost important. What is necessary in order to confront the water shortage issue that we face is for governments to assume responsibility for the regulation of water supply usage. The role of a truly representative government is to protect the interests of their citizens. A government should be held responsible for the well-being of the people that are under its jurisdiction, which is why governmental institutions are much more feasible in the regulation of water usage. Okay, and so in many people, I have a visual here actually to show right here. It's a map, and it shows these countries with red and yellow and orange actually are where the water shortage crisis is occurring. And it shows how significant this water shortage crisis is in nations all over the world, and how significant it is that we need to actually solve this. And many people feel that the water shortage crisis is actually environmental causes, and they feel we can't do anything about it. But it's clear that even though the environment does play a role in this, that it is a management problem, because as I've already stated, the water is an inexhaustible resource. It can't be depleted. Therefore, the problem is management. The private corporations utilize what the water resources that we have, and don't provide them for the developing nations because they can't afford it, and thus people are dying. In conclusion, the water shortage crisis is one of the most prevalent, globally spread occurrences in society today. The water shortage crisis is one that affects everyone, despite the strong links to poverty and strong inequality. Those who are not impoverished must not absolve themselves from obligations towards aiding and resolving the issue of water shortage, as it is left unchecked, the crisis will inevitably affect everyone. If we do not take action now, we will all be affected by the water shortage crisis in the near future. Thus, we must use governments and governments have a moral imperative to make themselves accountable for the universal distribution of water to their citizens. We must always work together toward the betterment of all, not the gain of one at the loss of another. All right.